And we're back. And we're moving into a second conversation for this morning. This is, of course, an opportunity for us to learn about different opportunities that exist in Belize, especially if you're looking to save and to make more money off your savings. We have with us the Managing Director of PPF Capital, Chris McGann, who's joining us via Zoom. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Marlene and Gavin. How are you?
We're good. Yeah, we're good. Great. Very interested in this topic, of course. But Chris, I have to start with the obvious, and that would be that talking about investment or making money off your money at a time where things are so financial hard may seem a bit out of touch. How do you when you're advising people, how do you help them to understand that any time is the right time?
Well, I think there's always an opportunity. It's the other side of the risk coin. It's funny, you have the savings discussion with individuals, family members, friends, and you say, you should try and save. And I say, but I can't save. And you always make this hypothetical argument: what if there was a new tax, or your income was cut by 10%? Yeah. You would find a way to survive. And now in these times, a lot of individuals and households have found themselves as employers adjust to the challenges associated with this pandemic. Some of the strategies employed have been to discuss reduction of wages as a temporary measure to actually adjust to this shock. Yeah. So now you have an actual situation where your wage was cut by 10% or 20%. As an interim measure, it kind of forces you to make the adjustment, and also underscores the importance of developing a personal and household culture of saving a certain proportion of your income.
I love that you said it. It's a culture, isn't it? Some of us grow up with it, some of us don't, and some of us try to develop it later on in life. What you said, I think, rings so true. That you always think you can't save or you don't have extra, but this time where people are facing pay cuts and loss of income, they realize that there was space for expendable money. What are some of the advice that you find? What's some of the advice you find you're giving people at this time?
Well, I think the advice in large part remains consistent in terms of, well, actually, let me strike that and come back. In this time, it really depends on your personal and household situation.
Yeah.
Generally, what you want to do is actually set personal and household savings goals. If it is that you've had a change in your income, what you want to do is focus on preserving your income and maintaining your ability to keep up or pay the essential bills associated with your lifestyle, I guess. So right now it's about income preservation, consolidation, working out any challenges that you may have with your financial institution on a personal level, and resetting your personal financial goals if it is that you were directly impacted by the fallout associated with this pandemic. So definitely there's not necessarily a one size fits all. Every individual, every household is a little bit different, and you have to adapt your personal or household financial plan to your personal circumstances.
And, is there also, or shall I, is there also a way that people, or is there a right time, let's say, in terms of, of structuring, or if somebody wants to, step into this risk, is there some sort of specific advice that you'd give them? And you can go ahead right there.
So the right time to start saving, thinking about savings and investment was yesterday.
Yeah.
But the we have no time like the present to start thinking about savings and investment. I come back to what I said in the first comment. It's about creating a culture or a habit of saving, looking at your monthly or weekly wage and figuring out what percentage of that wage can I actually save, um, and creating your own personal or household savings targets. Can I put away half a month's worth of expenses? Can I put away 1 month's worth of expenses? And you set your savings goals, 3 months worth of expenses. Thereafter, then you're moving towards looking at potentially investment decisions.
Yeah.
And investment decisions will definitely depend on what your goals are. Are you saving for retirement? Are you saving for your kids' college fund?
Yeah.
Are you saving for, um, to purchase a house? What is your saving and investment plan at a
Yeah.
particular time? Is it to get supplemental income for the household? I think those things will definitely determine what you and whoever is your advisor come up with your personal savings and investment plan.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's probably part of the reason why some people feel a bit lost at times, because some people just think about, they want to increase their income, or they want to just, earn, get more streams of money, but they don't have a particular goal in mind. So that can be, I guess, part of the reason why some people are sort of wary when it comes to investing their money, because they think that, well, this might seem like a good opportunity, but they don't know what's the end goal. Do you find that as well? Yeah.
So I think in terms of the end goal, it has to be personal. It's like a parallel to, if you want to get in shape. There's so many levels to in shape. Maybe the first thing you can start with is a goal. I want to lose 5 pounds in the next 2 months. That may be a reasonable goal. Maybe your goal is, I want to save 1 month's worth of expenses, and you start with that. In terms of the investment decision, it's hard or a little bit challenging if you're 21 getting into the workforce to think about retirement. It's far away, but it's important to start building the culture of saving and building the culture of investment and beginning to create those income streams. It doesn't happen overnight, and I think there's a lot of things that individuals and households need to consider based on where they are on the investment spectrum.
Yeah.
For example, if you're at the age of retirement and you're looking for investments, you're considering shorter term and near cash, low risk investments because you want income preservation. If you're just beginning, you may be willing to take on more risk because your other things being equal, your earnings and investment horizon is a bit longer. So what you want to try and do is match potential investments with your risk profile and risk tolerance and your investment goals in terms of time horizon.
And what are the turning more like specifically to what we're talking about today? What are some of the investment opportunities that do exist, in Belize, for different levels of income?
Well, the first thing is to create that culture of saving, as I discussed.
Yeah.
The first investment you should make is to create a separate account for savings, whether it is at your bank or your credit union. That's perhaps the first investment that you should make. Set some targets for this blocked account that you don't touch. If you have it already, set some targets for how much you want it to grow. In terms of available investment options, there's some employers have a pension plan. So perhaps looking at joining the company's pension plan and participating in that may be a route of investment that requires little active management or active you have to pay attention to your statement, look at who the trustees of the pension plan are and what they're investing in. But in terms of active time doing due diligence on investments, participating in your company's pension plan, if one is available, is probably a first, an easy step. If that's not available, some of the options that are available in this market, for example, are participating in government securities. There's treasury notes that are usually available. You could offer to purchase them or seek to invest in them on a retail scale. That is kind of an option as well. And for the most part, the option that has been made publicly available are debentures and other instruments offered by the public utilities. So that's been an option as well. There's also been some issuance of municipal bonds. I think Belize City and Belmopan have done municipal bonds, and those are investment opportunities that have arisen.
Now,
There's direct investment, but in terms of securities, I think those are the universe, so to speak, of investments that have been or are currently available in Belize.
So let's talk about these options, because I think that's, if you don't have a finance background, perhaps your only option that you think of is a savings account or maybe a term deposit, or and looking at that as ways of putting aside money, earning interest from it, and hoping to be able to use it at another time. But the other investment options, the treasury notes, the bonds, the debentures, let's talk about those and put them against each other as to which would be best for you at what phase.
So some of the things that we would look at when making a personal investment decision is the impact, first of all, on your overall wealth. That's your net worth. What you own versus what you owe, and what's left at the end of that. What effect will this have on my net worth? The way we get paid from any investment, generally speaking, is from dividends or interest payments and a potential capital gain, or when you exit the position. So you're looking at, for example, if you purchase a house, other things being equal, you expect over time the value of the house should rise. So the difference between what you bought it for and what you eventually sell it at is your capital gain, if there is a capital gain. If you buy shares or equity, the cash flows come from the dividends or the capital gain. And if you buy debentures or bonds, the cash flows come from the interest payments or coupon payments and the return of the principal at the end. So what you're looking at is each type of asset has a different type of risk associated with it. And when we're talking about risk, we're talking about, what if I don't get back the principal and interest that I agreed to? And the different instruments offer different types of security. In terms of debentures, debentures are usually secured by protection of the company's assets. So there's usually this document that's called an indenture, and in the indenture, the company agrees that it will not cause a charge or a claim to be created on any of its assets. And that's what's providing the pool of underlying protection. So the first source of repayment is the cash flows from the company that pay your interest and principal. And the other source of protection for investors is this protection of the assets. All that coming back to the point of debentures, they offer what is called a coupon rate or an interest rate, and they're for a particular point of time. They're usually medium to long-term assets, so you're talking 5 to maybe at the long end 15 years, and they offer varying rates of interest depending on the perceived risk associated with the company that's borrowing the money through the issuance of these debentures.
Yeah.
And how will, you would probably, you definitely know this from your background, but how, for a person who is interested, perhaps they want to know from the other end in terms of how that risk is calculated when they look at the individual applicant?
Um, in so that's like a topic in and of itself. The simple answer is to look at the financial position of the company at a particular period of time, and based on your understanding of what the prospects of future success are. In terms of the venture issuance in Belize, it's been largely limited to public utilities, which are in large part essential services, electricity, water, and now ever increasing telecoms. One could argue that communication is actually essential to the way. I mean, look, we're having this conversation via an online platform, and a lot of people are using the internet now more than ever to get work done. So definitely, communication is an essential platform as well. But I think what you have to look at to make your personal determination of risk is to look at, do I understand what this business is doing and how they generate money?
Yeah.
You know, and look at their statements of financial position, so their audited financials. Look at and look at what you perceive as their likelihood of being successful going forward. So definitely something that is an essential service, you would expect, other things being equal, to have less risk than if I issued debentures for a fruit juice shake stand. Just throwing out a random example there. But if you understand how the company makes money and you look at the financials, you can come up with some perception of risk. And what we also do is compare it to other investments. So we're looking at what is this offering relative to a term deposit? What is this offering to a similar maturity government treasury note? What is this offering relative to a real estate investment, for example? And we make our own personal decisions based on what is our risk appetite and liquidity needs at a particular point in time.
Yeah. Now, you speak about risks, and that's one of the areas I wanted to look at, because you're a young professional, and I think that you'll know more than anyone else that we don't recognize that we're low risk when we're young. We only recognize it when we're older and our risks are higher. So when you talk to that particular demographic and you try to help them understand that being able to make investments at an earlier age pays off in the longer run is a tough one to have. Not everyone has the finance background to be able to grasp it. So how do you convince them? Like, if you were just talking to your friends and you said, listen, this is why you should pursue this instead of spending all your money or just putting it, let's say, in a savings account from a young age.
That's that's an interesting conversation to have. And it really depends on what kind of mental space the person is in at a particular point in time. But I think you point out, you ask basic questions. You own a car? Yes. If the answer is yes, what would you do if you need to repair your car suddenly and you have a $300 emergency? Can you cover that? To begin the savings conversation. What would you do if you have a sort of medical emergency and you need 500 to cover or something? Small things. It's a small conversation about putting away something, and that's the way you begin the conversation, and then you start thinking about, okay, as I mentioned, it all comes back to starting with small savings goals, and then working your way towards creating that habit of savings and eventually moving on to investments. If you try to start off at the high end of it may seem overwhelming.
Of course.
I mean, I come back again, if you're 21 and you're telling me when you're 55, you're going to need X, or when you're 65, you're going to need Y. That's hard to conceive, because at 21,
We're not
22,
thinking about being that age when we're 21.
definitely. I mean, that's more time than you've lived. When you're in your 30s, it becomes a different conversation. No.
Yeah.
And you start thinking, what was I doing in my 20s? I need to really kind of catch up.
Lost a whole decade.
So something like that. But the earlier you begin, creating the habit of savings and looking at investments that are suited to your needs at a particular time, the better it is, other things being equal in the long run.
Yeah. And speaking of the actual results, how would you how do you break that down for somebody who's perhaps seeking your advice, or somebody who's interested in investing, whether at any age? How do you tell people sort of what are the results, both short term and long term, that they can kind of expect based on the investment that they do make?
Well, I mean, for investments, it's relatively simple. I mean, other things being equal, you know what you expect in terms of the interest rate, or if it's a debt instrument. If it's an equity instrument, there's variability. So if you're investing in shares in a company, you're not guaranteed a rate of return.
Yeah.
You could get a huge rate of return, maybe 25% over the time period that you're holding, or you could get zero. It really depends on how well the company performs. If it's a debt investment like a debenture, other things being equal, if the company continues to be successful, you know what your interest payments are and when you expect to receive the principal. Each type of investment has different risks. If you put your money under the bed, you're getting zero rate of return. In fact, if you look at what's happening with inflation, you're actually losing money. If you put your money in a savings account, you should be getting 2.5%. And that should put you at least a little bit better than the average inflation rate. So that's a low risk investment, but you have access to your money almost instantaneously. So it really depends on how much risk you're prepared to take, and that will kind of outline the rate of return you expect.
Now, there's been offerings of recent of treasury notes, of debentures for the public utilities. Do you find people showing more interest at this time?
Definitely, there's still a lot of interest. I mean, our firm is working with Belize Water Services Limited right now, and we're finalizing the prospectus for their debenture offering. First time that they're coming to market offering debentures, and the offer is looking like a 10-year debenture offering an interest rate of 6.25%. The minimum subscription for this offering is $1,000, so it's relatively accessible. And there has been interest. We've gotten quite a bit of interest since the press release and initial discussions on the BWS debenture. So there has been interest from individuals and institutional investors in the prospect of coming in on this BWS offering.
And so when you say minimum subscription, break that down for us. So somebody's thinking, okay, I was listening to Chris, and he says that I don't just have to save my money. I can buy these debentures. I can buy these treasury notes. Break it down for people so they understand.
The entire size of the money that's being raised is $50 million, right?
Yes.
That's a big number for individuals and institutions. So what we're saying is, to participate in this, the minimum amount you need to buy in, the minimum denomination of this offering is $1,000. So if you have $1,000 in savings, you may consider switching that out to this 10-year BWS debenture that's offering 6.25% interest for 10 years.
It means you can't go back and touch your $1,000. You only can be able to make money off of it
Right.
over the span of time. That's the key thing for people to understand. But if it is something that you're looking to earn money, that's one of the options. So
Right.
you've seen a lot of interest. How do people subscribe?
How do you subscribe?
Yeah.
Well, they right now you can send us an email to begin the conversation. That's our email address is info@ppfcapital.com, and we have been having discussions with prospective investors and taking their contact information. As I said, we are about 95% finalized with the prospectus, so we expect that it will be available publicly, possibly as soon as next week.
Yeah.
And it will most likely be available on our website, on BWS website, and it will have all the information about the company and about how to subscribe.
Yeah. Now, people may be watching and thinking, well, this isn't for me. This is for people who can afford a lot more than just my $1,000. What do you say to them?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
I was saying for people who are watching and assuming that this is not an opportunity for them, that maybe their minimum subscription is too small. What do you say to them?
Too small.
Yeah.
I think it's 1,000 is the buy-in that we selected to try and make it available to individual investors.
Yeah.
But I think in this market, 6.25% for 10 years is quite an attractive rate of return for a company like BWS, who has a history of profitability, and there's virtually inelastic demand for water. All of us, other things being equal, we don't expect to change our water consumption.
Yeah.
So I think this is a great investment. I think that you understand, it's quite simple to understand the company's business model, and relative to other potential investments that are available in the market, it's definitely attractive from a yield and from a risk perspective.
And in terms of, the different types of people who might be interested, or, that you've advised, actually, before we get there, I did want to ask something that you did bring up a little bit earlier when you were talking about the investment climate, and you were talking about, people who were just in terms of, if you save money under the mattress, you may be actually losing money due to the inflation situation and whatever. And I was wondering if we could get a little bit more into why you said that, and sort of what we're looking at in terms of the current financial climate, in terms of inflation and stuff like that.
Well, so we can speak generally.
Yeah.
So if you want to get into it, you could look at your rate of return as a nominal rate of return. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
So if someone is saying they're paying you 10% on an investment, for example, and the inflation rate is 1%, if you adjust for what you're losing in purchasing power, your effective rate of return is 9%. It's as simple as $1 today won't be able to buy the same thing as $1 a year from now, and on average, that differential is measured by the inflation rate. Mm-hmm. I remember growing up, and this will probably date me, that pack bread used to be $1. Yeah. You went to school with 25 cents, and there was a world of things you could buy. Smarties, Bun Bun. Mm-hmm. Again, I didn't date myself, but if you give a kid 25 cents now, they might ask, what
can I get?
What can I get with this? And that's to show you inflation. So if you're not earning a rate of return on your money, you're actually losing money, because your money can do less over time as prices rise on average.
Okay. All right. And any final advice for people how to get in touch with you to discuss the opportunities more?
So you could definitely send us an email. I think you guys showed the email address already, info@ppfcapital.com, and we'll be happy to answer any other questions that may arise associated with this debenture offering and any other potential investment queries that you may have.
All right. Well, Chris, thank you so much for having this conversation with us. It's I think you said earlier the best time is yesterday. So it means it's never too late for people to start, and also in terms of planning for the future, they know the opportunities. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you too, and have a good one.
All right. Stay safe. And
Okay.
with that, we're going to go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we are going to be talking to PPF Belize Limited about some of their special promotions they're having. So please stay tuned.